Hello and welcome, this is Reddit. Today let's talk about Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, and how I personally feel about it, and more importantly, what I'm seeing other people feel about it. Now obviously overall the community reaction has been wholly positive, which is great, that's well deserved. I think most of us are just really happy to see that it's coming out so much earlier than expected. However, because of the nature of my content, there is very likely a higher proportion of people who are skeptical about Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak in my audience, at least compared to other Monster Hunter creators' audiences. One of my most popular videos is my Monster Hunter Rise review. In that review I talked about what I thought were all the problems with Monster Hunter Rise. So it's not a surprise that I've attracted a lot of people who, like me, were disappointed in Rise in one way or another. So now that Sunbreak has been announced, I've started noticing people, both in my comment sections and in social media, different platforms, not as excited as I might have expected. Among those people, there seems to be a feeling that Rise's problems were deeply rooted. That this expansion is unlikely to solve the problems that they had with it, and if it only offered you more of the same, they weren't sure they were interested in that. Now, the degree and severity of how much people feel this way is varied, but I think that most of them would agree what I'm saying is fair. The most intense one that I saw was someone on Twitter who is encouraging people to pirate the PC port of Rise, pirate the G-ranking expansion, and pirate all the paid cosmetics. Now, this level of skepticism and negativity has gotten me thinking, because I do still stand by everything I said in my criticisms of Monster Hunter Rise. I think Rise falls short in a lot of ways. So I started to ask myself, what exactly would Sunbreak have to introduce to make me happy? What would cause me to give it a completely positive review? What do I want? What do some of these skeptics want? And conceivably, could Sunbreak deliver on a product that would make even people that are currently quite burned out with Monster Hunter Rise into optimists? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. I believe I've identified the main 3 complaints that people have regarding Monster Hunter Rise. I'm sure there are more of them, and I'm sure some people have very specific problems with the game, but these 3 I feel are the ones that most of us that complain are talking about. Number 1. Sunbreak needs to be harder. Much, much harder than what we have currently. When you take into consideration how completely overpowered the Kimura Hunter is right now, even though Rise is just the base game, you can already put a lot of skills on your character with mixing and matching armor and putting decorations. You can already get very overpowered. And then you add to that the maneuverability that you can have with your wire bugs, the Silkbind skills, the different switch skills, the wirefall mechanic, how much health your mega potions heal you, the damage output that your hunter can do when each of the weapons has a counter, or at least most of them. All of this stuff taken together makes it really hard to see what they could do for Sunbreak to give us an appropriate level of difficulty again. And the pessimistic among us look at that and start to wonder, are they even interested in providing any kind of challenge? Because Sunbreak is sure to have even more stuff accrued, even more skills that you can slot on your character, new and interesting skills that you can put in there, new switch skills, certainly new ways to interact with the switch skill mechanic. So for sure, the hunter's going to be even stronger in Sunbreak than he is now. So all of that said, what we really want is higher difficulty. And I don't really care how they go about providing that higher difficulty. I've unlearned how to be picky. I'll take what I can get. If that means a simple increase to the damage numbers, because right now I do feel they're kind of low, then fine, a simple increase to the damage numbers. But a more interesting thing to do is add tempered monsters, hyper monsters, some kind of frenzied monsters, a new kind of monster mechanic that increases difficulty in a way like that. Or even better, if they wanted to spend the time on it, make the monsters interact with the wirefall in more interesting ways. Make it much more difficult to wirefall away from things or at least make wirefall take a little bit of forethought, a little more planning. They already have that a little bit. For example, there are attacks that are meant to be wirefalled. You can tell that you're supposed to wirefall those things. But it needs to be more than that. Like, for example, Teostra is a good example of them doing this fairly well. Many times I'd noticed that he would put those little explosion blasts in places where I was thinking of wirefalling too, and sometimes I would wirefall right into an explosion at just the right time. Making monsters more able to hit you again when you're trying to wirefall away from them would help a lot. It would solve a lot of people's problems with the wire bug, and if it didn't solve it completely, it would mitigate it. But yes, difficulty is a big concern for people. Moving on. The next big thing, probably even bigger than the difficulty, I think this one I see more often actually, is the endgame loop. People want more to do post-game. If you go to any Monster Hunter content creator, any of the large ones, they'll all at some point have said pretty much what I said in my video when we were talking about endgame loops. The point I was making in my video was that I didn't feel done with Monster Hunter Rise. I wanted to keep playing, but I didn't feel a strong enough incentive to continue. There wasn't anything I wanted, there wasn't any item I wanted to get, there was nothing to farm for. And that we aren't all blessed with the ability to just play a game and enjoy it without some kind of external game-placed reward. Especially when you don't even get to feel a sense of accomplishment because the monsters aren't terribly difficult. I was linked to a video by Rage Gaming, a very large and very popular Monster Hunter channel, and I believe the video title was something like, I want to keep playing Monster Hunter Rise, but I can't. And the point that they were making in that video was basically the exact same point. I think the exact quote was something like, I'm not done with Monster Hunter Rise, but it feels like Monster Hunter Rise is done with me. Something like that, along those lines. And if you go scour far enough, I'm positive all of the large Monster Hunter content creators will at some point have said something similar. We all feel a very deep urge to keep playing because the gameplay is just, it's fun. We like Monster Hunter Rise. But it has a bad incentive system. 100 hours of gameplay time might be a lot for a normal game, but I didn't come to Monster Hunter expecting 100 hours of game time. It's not that much for a Monster Hunter game. So yeah, those are the two things that I think most people can all agree on that we want. Harder monsters to keep us more engaged, and a robust endgame loop to keep us playing. And all of that brings me to the last thing that I hear quite often. And this one I don't think we're going to get. I think it's very unlikely. Which is the hunting simulation, very immersive aspect of it. The pre-preparation part of Monster Hunter. A lot of people feel that as Monster Hunter has progressed, it's become less and less about that specific part, and it's a lot of people's favorite part about Monster Hunter. For this one, there's zero chance that it's going to make any kind of return in Rise Ultimate, in Sunbreak. This one you're just going to have to let go. There's some possibility that there might be a kind of return to form in Monster Hunter 6, but for now, that's just not happening. If your main criticism of Rise was along that line, and fixing the other two problems wouldn't appease you, then I highly recommend you don't buy Sunbreak. It's not going to be for you, I promise. But as for me, and I think as for most people, if in this TGS event on the 30th, if they show me something that makes me think that they understand what my problems are with Rise, they are going to make an effort to make things harder, they're going to make an effort to make the endgame more engaging, then personally I'm completely ready to forgive. Let's do it. I'm eager to be optimistic again. I miss that. But that's the end of this video. I am curious though, for my audience, if you see something in TGS that, like me, makes you think that they're going to take the concern about difficulty seriously and the concern about endgame loops seriously, if you see things that make you think that those two problems will be addressed, will you suddenly become optimistic if you were pessimistic up to this point? Let me know in the comment section. That would be useful data to have. As always, thank you very much for watching.